hypertension or high blood pressure is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, and it's a modifiable risk factor. According to many studies, hypertension is a growing problem in India, both in the urban areas and in rural areas, but the prevalence of hypertension is greater in urban areas. Since cardiovascular disease is preventable, it's important to understand the development of hypertension in these areas as a way to build ways to prevent its aggregation and continuation. So my study focused on 10 different villages in the south as a step to investigate the development of hypertension in these areas. So what I did to study that, I had a questionnaire, I took blood pressure measurements, and I did different observational notes, and I was in the different villages. And here, that's me in one of the villages conducting research. So in order to decide if someone had hypertension or not, I used the 7th report of the Joint National Committee on Prevention, Detection, Evaluation, and Treatment of High Blood Pressure. And the reason I use this is the one I saw most commonly used in literature, and it's the same as the World Health Organization criteria and the American Heart Association. And if you guys look over here, this is Tamil Nadu. This is all of India, but here Tamil Nadu in Kanchipuram district is in the north of Tamil Nadu. Following results, I saw that the prevalence of hypertension was around 15%, and the percentage of individuals with prehypertension ranged between 20 to 38%, so quite high. I looked at different components that are known to influence hypertension in the villages, first being nutrition and dietary component. Studies have found that diets containing low-fat dairy food, reduced saturated fat, total fat and cholesterol intake, as well as the consumption of fruits and vegetables reduce blood pressure. Other studies have found that diets with reduced sodium levels reduce blood pressure as well. Rice is a staple form and is eaten in India between 2 to 3 times per day, so quite a lot. And it's always accompanied by some type of sauce, which is made from vegetables, tamarind, and dal. And the rice by itself doesn't really provide any health to the villagers except in energy, but it's the sauces that accompany it that give the nutrition to the villagers. So a lot of the different forms of rice that was eaten had pulses or legumes incorporated into it. For example, idli or dosa. And this was really important because legumes are, under the USDA food guide, not only included as a subgroup of vegetable, but also as a subgroup of meat, poultry, and fish because they have high protein, zinc, and iron content. And because the villages had very low meat consumption, it was really important that they had this incorporated. The consumption of fruits and vegetables is really low in the villages. The villages ate between 2 to 4 times per week green leaf vegetables, 4 to 5 colored vegetables per week, and 1 to 3 fruits per week. Very low. And although most of the villagers were farmers, they didn't get to eat the food that they grew, and it's really expensive in that area compared to other energy-rich food. And the price of food is a huge determinant of what an individual eats, especially in these kind of areas. Every village interviewed had at least 86% of the village indicate they used salt in every single meal, and most villages up to 100%. There were 3 main types of main oils used in the villages: groundnut oil, palm oil, and sunflower oil. Groundnut oil was used between 0 to 42% of the villages, palm oil 30 to 50%, and sunflower oil 25 to 76%. And these percentages obviously don't add up to 100 because many households use more than one kind of oil. So looking into just one of the things I analyzed for the different kinds of oils is saturated fat in each oil, and it's really different between the 3 different kinds of oils. Groundnut oil has 20% saturated fat, sunflower oil has 12% saturated fat, and palm oil has 50% saturated fat. And so not only do these 3 differ greatly in their health component, but also economically. Sunflower oil is approximately 20 rupees more than palm oil, and 46 rupees is about $1, so that makes a really big difference. Also, when I looked at the different villages, they all had snack type stores, kind of like 7-Elevens, where they sold cookies and chips. And these were all sold not packaged, and if they did have packaging, it was very clear packaging with no food labels. And if it did have food labels, this was really not abundant, but it was if it was extremely cheap. A packet of biscuits is about 10 rupees compared to an orange, which is about 30 rupees, about 3 times the price. So that was pretty interesting. The lack of clear food labeling was extremely problematic in these areas because without food labeling, it was really hard for the villagers to identify the amount of invisible fats. In 20 years, by labeling food appropriately, Canada was able to save $5.3 billion, and the United States is able to save $4.2 billion. So it's quite a lot, like the health benefits from this step. And these stores were always located across the street from a school, so that was kind of sad to see. This image is actually taken from Chennai, but it's similar to the way the chips are fried and made in near these villages. And because it's made at the shop itself, it doesn't have any food labeling. Okay. Physical activity has been directly correlated with lower blood pressure and as a preventative measure hypertension. So I looked at the different jobs that the villagers held as an indication of their physical activity during work. And the jobs were very different from men to women, but very similar between the villages. If you look at women, the most common job for women was a housewife, and the second most common was a farmer. So although the most common job for women was a housewife in India is very different than a housewife here. Since they're a lot less modernized or technologically advanced, doing just basic things is a lot more physically demanding, and it takes a lot more time, less time to be sedentary. And this is one of my examples, is the houses there didn't have running water. It was very rare to have running water. And so instead of just turning the faucet on and off like we do here, they had to go, walk, pump water, then carry the water they pump back. And you use water for almost everything you do. Another example would be doing laundry. So we have washing machines to do that. They all do that by hand. So their jobs are, like being a housewife is a lot more strenuous. The second most common job was farmer. And all the women that indicated that they were farmers indicated that they had a very high level of exertion during their job, as can be expected. There were very few other jobs for women. As for men had a lot more diversity in their jobs. There were a lot of men that weren't farmers or house workers. And most of the jobs that men had, if they weren't farmers, were very sedentary, such as being a shopkeeper, answering telephones at a company, things like that. And also, if they did work at a company when they were a farmer, they have to travel far to get to work. And mostly they would take buses or trains instead of walking, as the farmer usually did. None of the villagers owned cars that were interviewed. A very small percentage owned motorcycles. The highest was 39% from one village. The majority of workers either walked to their job or bicycled. This is a shop. One way to look into the villagers' leisure time was to see the ways in which technology may impact their leisure time. I know here technologies impact our leisure time greatly. One thing I looked at was how many televisions or computers they had in their homes. And this was probably like something that completely blew my mind. Between 75 to 100% of the villagers owned a television. I'd walk into these homes and they'd be living in a mud hut with almost no furniture, maybe a mattress, maybe a couple chairs, but they all had a TV. It was really funny. And only about the highest percentage of people that owned a computer is 9.3%. Almost none of the villagers owned computers. 100% of the villagers' health information came from their doctor, is what they indicated. There were very few other responses. And although television and internet here play such a big role for us in finding out how we can be healthier, it didn't there. Also, this was kind of interesting how they all indicated doctor, because I kind of wondered how often they saw their doctor, how they got to their doctor since it was far away and transportation was an issue, and it's expensive. There were free health centers in the area. This was like a 30-minute or so walk. I went to about 3, and they were overflowing with people. You had to wait about 2 hours to get seen, and it was a very quick visit, quick interaction with the doctor, more the kind of place you go once you need treatment, not as a place to get health information. During my time, most of the villagers were not aware of their own blood pressure. Very few people had medication to combat their blood pressure if they did know. And despite not having an awareness, they always had a concern. They always were like, is it healthy? Is it not? But then once I told them, they didn't really care. If it was healthy, they were like, oh, great. If there wasn't, they were like, oh, okay. Didn't want to know why or anything really more than that. Overall, my experience was really amazing. I learned a lot, not only about my project, but about doing research. And I'm really grateful for my time. I'd like to say some thank yous. First of all, to the kinesiology department, because they were amazing in helping me get there. The director and staff at the orphanage I stayed at, because I stayed at an orphanage while I was there. My driver, and I really want to thank him, because I do not know how you drive on some of those roads. My translator and one of the nurses at the orphanage. Her name is Mala. And this is a picture of monkeys outside my apartment, which I had to include. That's it.